Games Fan TV. Welcome back to another podcast. Joined here by Matthew Hurley from the Gaelic Statsman podcast to run through the All-Ireland Ladies Football Final. Dublin are the All-Ireland champions. We're going to be discussing some managerial appointments in Gaelic football as well. Ciaran Meenagh confirmed as Derry senior football manager. Some other appointments here and there as well, and rumours, speculation, chat. So do let us know in the comments in terms of what else you expect to happen in terms of managerial appointments. We're going to be discussing the possibilities for some new rules in Gaelic football. There were some trialed at some club games in Dublin a couple of weeks ago, and there are some suggestions that the 4-pointer for goals could be brought in. Suggestions of the ball not being able to be carried back into your own half as well. So we're going to get Matthew's opinion on that. I want to know some of your opinions in the comments as well. And we are going to be discussing the Camogie final taking place this weekend as well between Cork and Galway. So do get your comments in relation to that. I suppose, Matthew, I suppose in terms of the All-Ireland final, obviously plenty to discuss there. But overall, I suppose things have calmed down quite a bit in terms of the Gaelic games front, especially with club seasons and everything coming up, and last bit of intercounty action at the weekend as well coming up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Aaron. Yeah, it's a crazy thing that we are going to this stage really, and some people are still talking about the Kerry and Donegal game, which, to be honest with you, Aaron, I think it's kind of disrespectful in a way, because the LGFA final did happen on Sunday. There was a lot of promotion. Kudos to TG Carr, obviously, for doing all the promotion, and our good friend Seamus Brady was actually working on site in Crow Park. Had a very long day ahead of him as well. And obviously the Camogie final is coming up this weekend as well, which should be good in fairness. And not just because Cork and Galway in the senior final, but the intermediate and junior finals is the first year where there's no B teams. So we have unique counties. So you have Armagh, Laois in the Premier Junior final, Offaly and Kerry in the intermediate final. It's great for Kerry Camogie to be in the intermediate final. You probably would have expected Offaly to be there. But from a Cork and Galway point of view, bit repetitive that they are there. Like, I think I've seen a stat during the week that since 2014 or 2015, other than Galway, Cork and Kilkenny, only one county's reached the All-Ireland Camogie final, and that was Waterford in 2023. So we kind of want somebody new, like a Tipperary, like a Waterford or something like that, to break through the Camogie glass ceiling in many ways. But look, Galway are here because they're experienced and they have improved as the season has gone on. Cork have battered everybody. Like, they've an average winning margin of 20 points. Like, take that what you will. Like, you look at the Camogie score lines, even all close to journey to the finals later in the week on my own social media handles. But when you look at the scores there, Cork scores 6 goals in one game, 5 goals in another. There probably is a case to be said about maybe doing better in the structure of the Camogie Championship in terms of, like, you looked at Derry this year, only scored 2 points against Waterford and conceding 5 goals to 30 points. Like, that just isn't growing the game in those kind of counties as well. But look, Galway Cork should be a very good final. It was a good final last year, and hopefully it will be the same again. And you talked about club championships. Look, I've been to a few games, obviously down in Cork in the football. I did a few bits of reporting in the hurling as well for the Southern Star, and obviously Sarsfield's obviously started their hurling championship as well over the last weekend, and I'm still part of Sarsfield's of doing a few stats for them, so absolutely delighted to be on board there. They got a win first day out against Father O'Neill, so happy days there. So look, club season, absolutely delighted that it is coming up very, very soon as well. And obviously, as you mentioned, Aaron, one inter-county weekend left. Can't wait for the Camogie finals. Really should be 3 interesting games next Sunday.
Absolutely, yeah. Tom says here, I think Kerry could do 3 in a row in the men's. Not much to stop them there. Yeah, it's an interesting point, Tom. Dublin is great. Says there is something building in Galway, maybe in relation to the Galway Camogie team, but we'll certainly get onto that a little bit later on. Look, we'll start with the All-Ireland final that took place at the weekend on Sunday. It was Dublin 2-16, Meath 10 points. It was the girlfriend's birthday the same day, so unfortunately I didn't really get to see any of this, but I have since watched the game back, of course, and I was keeping an eye on the score and everything else as the game was happening. Incredible, really. Like, as I was watching it watching it back, obviously you knew kind of how the game went, and you knew the story. It's obviously a little bit different, but keeping an eye on the score, 2-9 to 2 points at one stage after about 25 minutes, you couldn't believe it. But geez, Dublin came flying out of traps, and really this game was probably over after about 15 minutes.
It was just a model kind of performance. I think Darren O'Sullivan off the ball earlier on today, former Cork player, obviously she's mentioned that if you're looking for a perfect All-Ireland final performance, especially in the first half, this was it from Dublin. It was absolutely sensational in many ways in their defensive kind of capabilities and stopping the Mead influence of Vicky Wall and Emma Duggan, and to a lesser extent the likes of Aoibhinn Cleary and Marion Farrelly. Like Marion Farrelly went off early in this game, which probably epitomises the job that Dublin did around the middle of the park as well. And it was sort of a final where I don't think Mead did much wrong. Like, you look at the first half, yes, Robin Murray lost 2 kickouts and lost 4 overall. And I was talking on my podcast during the week to Mead, great. Obviously, Niamh O'Sullivan won 2 All-Irelands in 2021 and 2022. And both of us kind of mentioned Robin Murray's influence on the Mead team. And when you look at actually Mead's kickouts, they won 82% of them. They only lost 4 kickouts. But Dublin scored 1-2 off Robin Murray's kickouts. They scored 1-1 off 2 lost kickouts in the first half. That goal from Niamh Hetherington really put the dagger through the Mead challenge. It was just incredible to watch Dublin at full flow in this one. Like 75% shot accuracy overall, 78% shot accuracy in the first half, 1-6 off turnovers. Dublin were just absolutely on it. For the more goal, they were just superb. And you looked at probably the emotion behind it as well. Hannah Terrell's last appearance as a Dublin footballer, Nicole Owens obviously getting a goal as well. It was just a great day all round for Dublin LGFA. It was just a brilliant day overall. Carla Rowe was absolutely instrumental in the first half as well. Sinead Goldrick showed her experience as well. Eilish O'Dowd, what a midfielder to have. And funny enough, she's actually a Leitrim woman, not from Dublin. But look, we'll let that park there. But Niamh Hetherington was very good as well. Kate Sullivan, in my opinion, Kate Sullivan's footballer of the year in LGFA. I think she has been absolutely sensational this season. So look, what a performance from Dublin. Mead were probably not expected at the start of the season, or even at the start of the championship, even the start of the All-Ireland series, to get to this position. So you sort of have to credit Mead in that kind of light that they got here. But look, Dublin were just so good on the day. It was a perfectionist performance. It was absolutely superb in all aspects. Like 76% they won in kickouts. They won 59% of turnovers as well, scoring 211 from play. They only allowed Mead to score 4 points from play all in the second half. Mead didn't score a single score from play in the first half, which was probably epitomised the job that the likes of Martha Byrne did, Leah Caffrey. I thought Jess Tobin was absolutely excellent, the quarterback, in 6 turnovers throughout the whole game. And look, I thought it was just an all-round brilliant performance. A player, I forgot to mention actually the player of the match from DG Carr, Orla Nolan. Well, I counted, I think she had mid-20s in possessions, had a shot, I think, two assists as well, a few turnovers, a kick-out one as well. It was just an absolutely brilliant display for Dublin, and it was superb and worthy All-Ireland champions. It was a rocky start to the year for Dublin and for Paul Casey and Derek Murray. They didn't have a good league campaign, but they turned it around. They got it right in the end. And even when you think of the All-Ireland group stage, they nearly lost to Waterford that time below in Dungarvan, but for a Kate Sullivan point on the hooter to level it. And as Seamus mentioned on Clay last night, his podcast, if Kate Sullivan doesn't point that, Dublin would have played Galway in the All-Ireland quarter-final, going to Sawtail or Tuam or wherever it would be. So that would have been a difficult assignment for any time for the Dublin Ladies footballers, and how the season would have changed if Kate didn't step up and get that point back then. So look, Dublin have had their rocky moments throughout the whole year, but they saved their best performance of the year till last, and it was just an absolutely brilliant display. And obviously, best of luck in the retirement to Nicole Owens and Hannah Terran. What unbelievable servants for Dublin LGFA.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think Hannah Tyrrell probably goes down as, you could arguably say, the greatest ladies footballer to play for Dublin ever. Do you think?
The thing is, it's funny. She's only won 2 All-Irelands, Aaron.
I know. It's a bit of a mad one, isn't it? Because obviously she was away for a large part. Kind of in the in between gap when we were obviously so heavily dominant.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, but it's a very, very good reason why she was away. She was the international rugby player until 2020, 2021. And then she went into the Dublin Ladies Footballers. But the impact she's made in her 5 years playing for Dublin has been absolutely sensational. Winning 2 All-Irelands. Like, even in her last year, at the age of 34, 35, she was still top scorer in the championship with 8 goals and 38 points. Like, it was just a really, really good season. 3 goals and 18 points for play as well. It was just an absolutely brilliant season from Hannah, and she will go down as probably one of the greatest. It's kind of like in the men's game, Kevin Moran. Well, obviously that's way before both of our times, but he did play. He was a legendary soccer player, obviously playing for Manchester United, but he did win an All-Ireland with Dublin as well. And look, obviously other sports kind of take precedence because they're like professional sports and stuff like that. But look, even after Hannah did retire from international rugby, doesn't it take absolute, some commitment to go back to your county, to help out your county, and to achieve what she has achieved? So it's just absolutely exceptional in so many ways as well. And I absolutely agree with you. Even if she played for 5 years in the Dublin ladies football team, she's regarded as one of the greatest to ever play for Dublin. She's an absolute model of a player, probably one that a lot of young ladies footballers would actually look up to, because they'd say, I want to be the next Hannah Tyrrell. Even going back to the semi-final, we talk about 2-pointers in men's football and how it's revolutionised the game. And the women's game saying that they might, maybe the 2-pointer could be brought into our game. And some people may argue, they might not be able to kick 2-pointers. Well, Hannah did so in the last second against Galway to level it. And if Hannah didn't convert that, then Galway would have been the All-Ireland final instead of Dublin after winning that game in Tullamore. So like, what an absolute influence on the Dublin team. What a clutch player in many ways as well. And yeah, Dublin LGFA will miss her. And it's just she was an absolute great for Dublin LGFA, and obviously wishing her all the best in retirement. And to Nicole Owens as well, who's given so much of her time to Dublin LGFA. And I said about Nicole Owens last night to Seamus, doesn't she almost remind you of, like, in the men's game, a Donegal Walsh type or a Niall Scully type? A player that's underappreciated in so many ways, but she does the job brilliantly. She rarely has a bad game, and she just is professional to the max, if that. So look, best of luck to both girls. It has been like a brilliant career for both of them, and wishing them all the best.
Yeah, maybe to a lesser extent, Kevin McManaman, a little bit, like, always popping up with, maybe not so much, a super sub as such, but always popping up with big goals and kind of big moments. So absolutely, yeah, she'll be missed alongside Hannah Tyrrell. And a special mention has to go to Carla Rowe as well. 4 points, outstanding performance from her, and even in the semi-final as well, like, she was outstanding. Obviously, the goal, coming back on, getting the goal. So she's had a phenomenal year as well, and a brilliant year for Dublin overall. But for Meath, look, as you said there, like, I think it's one of them that, we all have a plan, and once that plan goes sideways, it can be very hard to kind of turn the tide and kind of recover. And it felt like to me, after that goal goes in from Nicole Owens, that Meath were a little bit rattled. And by the time they'd settled into the game, you're probably going into the second half, really, and it's sort of already done and dusted at that stage, that way. But overall, as you said, for Meath, like, you can't fault Meath for what they've achieved this year. Given beating, obviously, Kerry, coming as far as they have, some of the turmoil they've had in recent season, the changes of players and everything else. So full credit still has to go to Meath here.
Yeah, I think credit has to go to Meath in terms of reaching the All-Ireland final with a young enough team. Because when you consider, actually, most people that maybe casual watchers of LGFA, let's call it that, would have said, okay, they won the All-Ireland to 21, they won the All-Ireland to 22, they're back in the All-Ireland final, they have an opportunity to win their third All-Ireland in 5 years. That's a magnificent achievement. But when you look into it, the amount of players that Meath had in 21 and 22 that weren't there this summer around. Okay, Monica McGurk, the goalkeeper, was actually on the bench. Robin Murray, brilliant replacement for her. But when you look at it, Emma Troy wasn't there. Maura Shaughnessy, injury, obviously an ACL injury, wasn't there. Orla Laddie, AFLW player, wasn't there. Niamh O'Sullivan, who my podcast retired, wasn't there. Obviously Orla Duff, legendary cornerback from a Meath point of view, wasn't there either. Like, the amount of players that Meath did have back then that they didn't have now, and that's not to take away with the current Meath team, because there are a good bunch of young players in this Meath team and good up-and-coming players in many ways. Kerry Cole has been brilliant all year. She was just maybe stage fright, maybe got to some of them Meath players because it was many of them's first All-Ireland final. Yes, Emma Duggan and Vicky Wall, you'd point towards them being the main players, but like, one swallow doesn't make a summer. That kind of saying, Aaron. Like, two players doesn't make an outstanding team. Like, Emma Duggan and Vicky Wall are brilliant players, but the rest of them were a bit inexperienced in terms of All-Ireland points. To be fair, Aoife Cleary is definitely up there with one of the most experienced, and Mary Kay Lynch at this rate. But when you look at the majority of the Meath team, I've in front of me there, Robin Murray, okay, had a decent enough game, but relatively inexperienced. But to be honest, Robin Murray was absolutely superb, even with Dublin dominating the game. You have to say, like, she brought off some amazing saves. Like, Meath won most of their kickouts, and that was basically down to Robin Murray. And in many ways, you don't really see enough ladies football goalkeepers actually come out and command their area and actually get the ball from their defence in many ways and be comfortable on the ball. And Robin Murray's been comfortable on the ball throughout the whole season, which is a big compliment to her, obviously. But you look at the others then, Sean Ennis only came back into the panel this season after injury worries and after taking some time out away from the panel. But when you look at the rest of the defenders, Anya Sheridan, yes, good season, but inexperienced. Sarah Wall, Vicky's younger sister, yes, decent player, and scored a brilliant goal in the semi-final against Kerry, but inexperienced. Carla Keeley, inexperienced. Marion Farley at this level. Orla Shee, like, that was Meath's midfield, Orla Shee and Marion Farley. And they weren't, none of them two were a part of the 2021 and 2022 starting lineups. Megan Tyne would have been around the panel, maybe not as a starter. Niamh Galogly, maybe the same. Ciara Smith, a new player. Kerry Cole, a new player as well. So you have to take that into consideration as well. This was largely enough a new Meath side and a new manager as well. Shane McCormack has done a brilliant job at Meath to get them to the final. But look, they just came up. It was almost one step too far. Like, Dublin had a lot of experienced players on the pitch. Yes, they did experienced players at the same time. But even when you look at Dublin's team, you couldn't name one player out of that Dublin team and say, geez, they're inexperienced. I think the only one you could name was Hannah McGuinness at midfield. And to be fair, she's 19 years of age. And the thing is, she actually, Killian McGuinness' sister, so she does come from a very good footballing family in Skerries Harp. So that was the only inexperienced player in many ways in the Dublin team. But when you look at the Meath team, the majority of them are inexperienced. So I think that's what kind of cost Meath their victory. But look, that's not to say Meath won't do well next season. I think this is a platform for Meath football to go on and do further and better things. It'll be interesting to see now if Aoife Cleary and Vicky Wall, the both of them, are going down under to play AFLW for the rest of 2025. It will be interesting to see, will they commit for the whole year next year? I'm sure they'd want to. Like, they are proud Meath women. They want to play for their county. But will it take time and effort? It remains to be seen. That's obviously up to them players. But look, overall, I think Meath still had a very, very good season. They just came up against a more experienced team on the day. And in many ways, Aaron, I think they may have got stage fright in a way in the first half.
Yeah, Dublin is great. So sad to see Hannah go. I think she has another year in her. Yeah, I do get what you mean, but I think, as Matthew and, as we've been alluding to there, she's been around the block a while. She's achieved so much in the sport as well. So I think she's well within her right to step away. Gavin was saying here, very sad news in Roscommon and Galway with the passing of Don Conlon, great Roscommon player, proud Kilmore man, and did great work with Michael and too. Thoughts with his family. Yeah, absolutely. We all echo your comment there, Gavin, and same obviously applies to Jamie Doolan, who tragically passed away last week there as well, down in Kerry. So yeah, both very sad, and yeah, our thoughts and prayers and everything else are with all the friends and family of those who are connected there. Keane saying here, Eilish O'Dowd, the Ballinamore native, had a super performance for the Dubs. Leitrim and Ballinamore eyes are smiling. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting, Keane, actually. In the group stage of the LGFA All-Ireland Championship, Eilish and Laura, who are sisters, actually played against each other in the Leitrim and Dublin game. So you would have thought about that situation in the World Cup. Remember Jerome Boateng and Kevin Prince Boateng in 2010. But you wouldn't have thought about that in inter-county level, and maybe it's a first. I don't know. I don't think you've ever heard of the likes of that, Aaron, have you?
No, that I don't think. No, not inter-county level anyway. Like, I've seen club think I've seen club teams do like, I can't remember the specific cases, but obviously with clubs relations, but brothers and sisters kind of playing up against each other. Do you know what I mean? I've never quite seen that now.
Yeah, it's very unusual. But look, Eilish went to Dublin to obviously further her career, and he's an AFLW player this year as well. So you would say the move has worked, but at the same time as well, it's a funny story anyways, because Leitrim have actually gone up to the senior. They've gone back down ever since the intermediate. I'm sure they'll have the temperament to bounce back up. But it just shows how weird kind of sport is, how it turns around in roundabouts and all that. Obviously, Dublin outclassed Leitrim on the day, but obviously, I think from Keane's point of view, it must be great to see Leitrim compete at senior level. Like, they were close enough to Donegal in the relegation playoff as well. They could have stayed up on another year, but they just came up against super teams this year in Waterford and Dublin. Unfortunately, from a Leitrim point of view, but I'm sure from Keane's point of view, it was absolutely great to see Leitrim in the senior grade in LGFA this year after a brilliant season last season.
100%. Absolutely. And yeah, Keane says here, both sisters lined up against each other at Dublin were too hot to handle that day. Absolutely too strong on the day. Well, look, we'll move on to some managerial appointments that have been confirmed for intercounty football in 2026. So I think the ones we're going to focus on is Ciaran Meenagh to Derry and Gavin Devlin to Louth. But let us know if there's any others that you want to discuss. Obviously still some kind of up in the air rumor, speculation. I don't want to be drawn too much into whether this manager will stay or this manager won't, because we know that things can very, very change in Gaelic football. But look, we'll focus on what's confirmed. Ciaran Meenagh to Derry. Derry were one of the last counties to appoint their manager last year. You remember they dilly-dallied, and a lot of it was kind of outside their control, to be fair. I think we all know the man that they wanted to bring in and ultimately, for very obvious reasons, couldn't. And then they were looking elsewhere. There was talks of Enda McGinley. They were looking at Malachy O'Rourke. They eventually settled on Paddy Talley. After a year in charge, Paddy Talley has left. And Ciaran Meenagh, who was there, of course, under Rory Gallagher a couple of years ago, he was the assistant manager. When everything happened with Rory Gallagher, Ciaran Meenagh stepped in on a temporary basis and was able to guide Derry to the Ulster title and an All-Ireland semi-final as well. So what are your thoughts in terms of Ciaran Meenagh getting the role on a permanent basis?
My general thoughts are, why couldn't they stick with him after the All-Ireland semi-final defeat to Kerry? Because ever since then, Derry football has been an enigma in many ways. I think Ciaran Meenagh looked to be the right man to take Derry forward. He got them to an All-Ireland semi-final. Very competitive against Kerry. Probably should have won that day. We live reacted to that game, I remember. And Derry were, in large parts, the better team on the day, and they did absolutely brilliant. And Kerry just pipped them with class from David Clifford and Shawnee O'Shea. Where have we seen that before? But then this just got rid of Ciaran Meenagh, and they didn't appoint him on a full-time basis. And it was just a bit of a strange move at that time. Yeah. And then Mickey Hart comes in. Okay, initially he got the bounce, he won the league title. But then when the Derry players kind of turned on Mickey Hart, it was an absolute mess in the championship. And they were in absolute disarray. And then Mickey obviously left. This season was a weird one in many ways. They didn't win a game. They didn't probably come close to winning much, to be honest with you. Maybe the game against Galway, to be fair, in Celtic Park at the group stage, they were close enough, Derry, to a win there. But overall, it was just a poor year with Paddy Talley. And I know they performed well at stage. Like, even I'm actually calculating right now the top scorers overall, league and championship from play and overall, and two of them were way up the top of the list, were Shane McGuigan and Conor Glass, coincidentally. They actually had decent years despite Derry's results. But what the Derry players were actually saying in the media kind of puzzled me. Like, even like some of them, like Brendan Rodgers and even Garrett McKinless and RT, talking about the good times, and obviously the manager that you alluded to, Aaron, saying we had good times under him, winning an Ulster Championship, getting promoted, things like that. And it was kind of weird when you have a guy right on your doorstep that is managing the team in Paddy Talley, and you're talking about a guy that managed the team in the past.
Yeah.
Like, Derry had the pieces of the jigsaw. They had some decent players. Like we've always said, Derry have some very good players. They've Conor Glass and Brendan Rodgers around the midfield are as good as any. You've obviously Gareth McKinless, Ciaran McFall, very good players. Shane McGuigan, Lachlan Murray's a very good youngster coming through. But then you kind of ruin that by reminiscing on what they call the good times. And it's just, I mean, you have to move on at the same time, Aaron. Like that kind of story was come and gone now. You know, what happened. You have to move on. Obviously the manager couldn't come back in, and there was explicit reasons why. But like you can't reminisce on the past. You have to move forward as a county. And from a Derry point of view, I think this is probably the right managerial appointment in moving forward. Because if the Derry players are going to reminisce on those times under Ciaran Meenagh, I mean, what manager is honestly going to come in and sort this Derry project out? Because when you look at Division 2 next year, it is a bear pit. It's going to be tough next season. You could say, yes, okay, Tyrone will probably win 7 games out of 7 because of the way underage is going and stuff like that. But second place is going to be very, very difficult to call, Aaron. Like Meath, All-Ireland semi-finalists. Dare I say, like Cork, I think if John Cleary does stay on, if the news does break that John Cleary does stay on, I think Cork have unearthed a few gems and they could be up there. Louder Leinster champions, they could be up there as well. Kildare are developing under Brian Flanagan. Of course, you have Offaly and Cavan there in the ascendancy as well. So, I mean, now is not the time to look back at those times from a Derry point of view. You could be forgiven in Division 1 because there wasn't much danger in Division 1. But when you look at Division 2 now, in terms of league placings and things like that, if you go down from, which is a possibility for any team in Division 2, if you go down from Division 2 to Division 3, you then are suddenly in a situation of Tailteann Cup football. And you can't reminisce on the past then. So Derry need to buck up now. They need to play under Ciaran Meenagh and get their ideas across because they do have the players. They have the team. They have the quality. It's just about the temperament and getting your head in the game. That's what Derry need to do next season if they are to get promoted right back to Division 1. But I think, honestly, Ciaran Meenagh is the right managerial appointment because I don't think anybody else is capable at this present moment in time in getting these players in the right headspace to not look back in many ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Gavin says here, I would have wrote Derry off next year, but I think that an excellent choice. Kerry in the semi 2023 was the best I've seen Derry. I think Meath playing in Croke Park next year might help Dublin or help Derry in the league. Yeah, Meath obviously playing all their home games next year because of a redevelopment of Park Tailteann, so they'll be playing all their home games in the league in Croke Park.
I didn't know that, Aaron.
Yeah. That was confirmed. Yeah.
Jeez, that's interesting. No, another media day in Croke Park, or just a fan day, because Cork are away to meet according to the home and away agreement. So I'm happy for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I just googled it there just to be 100% sure, because I did hear that before, but then I was like, if Matthew doesn't know this, then have I got something off here? But no, there is an article here on the Irish Independent from Camogie, so definitely is happening. But look, to be fair, I actually think that could benefit me. To be honest with you, they played very well in Croke Park against Galway. I think that could actually potentially help them in the long run. Do you know that way? But no, circling things back to Derry, absolutely. Like, I don't know what the whole scenario was with Ciaran Meenagh not getting the job. I remember I did hear some chatter about maybe he turned it down because he didn't want to be an inter-county manager at that time. Obviously, he ended up going to Down and was part of Conor Laverty's kind of team there. So I'm not entirely sure what the whole scenario was. Did he get word that Mickey Hart was knocking on the door and he found that disrespectful and said, you know what, I'm not interested? Did he turn it down last year? Maybe they've gone in a little bit harder this year. Maybe the players have been involved. But no, I think it's the best appointment that Derry could have got. And I think we all hope, look, in Gaelic football, rivalries aside, no matter what it is, you want the sport to be as competitive as possible. And I think Derry have some phenomenal footballers there, and Conor Glass and Shane McGuigan, young players who've come through recently, like McAvoy. You still have Kieran McFall there. Obviously, Chrissy McCaig is left, but there's still a good bulk of players there. Brendan Rodgers. Like, I think Derry can look, not saying they can win an All-Ireland or anything like that, but a couple of years ago, they weren't far away. So they can definitely compete. They can definitely challenge the big boys. They can definitely push up. But what would you be looking at Derry now for next year in terms of like a realistic expectation with this managerial appointment? Do you think like promotion, as you said, is still going to be tough? I think, look, they'll definitely be targeting that. But in terms of the wider spectrum, what do you think could be a realistic ambition now for the Derry footballers going into next year?
The realistic objective has to be promotion from Division 2. When you look at the teams in there, look, they're going to be tough. Cork are going to be tough. Loud, of course. Kildare, Offaly. Like, they are going to be tough teams. But Derry certainly have the capabilities when you look at the players in the panel and the quality they have to get out of Division 2. The Ulster Championship depends on the draw, to be honest with you, Ciaran. Like, you look at the other Ulster teams like Donegal, if they keep Jimmy, they'll be definitely up there. Armagh, I'm sure, will be up there as well. They didn't perform particularly badly this year. I think they just had, like, it's just kind of the Ulster gene in many ways, where you win the All-Ireland and you don't do so the next season. Armagh just had that kind of performance against Kerry. So I think they'll certainly be up there. Tyrone, you look at their younger talents, of course, they'll be up there. Monaghan, lot of positive movement for Gabriel Bannigan. They'll be up there. Down, one of the stories of the season, I think they'll be up there as well. So you're counting 5 teams potentially above Derry at this present moment in time in Ulster. Probably I'd say the Cavan are on the lookout for a manager themselves, and for Man and Antrim just probably would be at the bottom of the pile, and that's just the frank reality for those 2 counties. But to win Ulster is a massive ask, and they're not. I don't think they're going to do it at this stage in their development. I don't think they're going to do it. They might do so if they gain a bit of confidence or whatever, but I don't think they'll do it next season. So realistic objectives, I'd say promotion from Division 2, All-Ireland quarter-final. I think Derry would be happy with that as a start, as kind of a building block towards something great potentially.
Yeah. Keane says here, the vacant Mayo management position looks to be entering a very interesting phase. Report earlier today that is down to Andy Moran and Tony McEntee. I expect Andy Moran to get the job. Yeah, I think so as well. I think out of those 2 candidates, I think absolutely you go with Andy Moran. Knows the Mayo players inside and out. I think he'll be able to galvanise them, get get a bit out of that Mayo team. I think it is a risk bringing in kind of I know he did well with Leitrim. He's obviously been involved with Monaghan as well, but it's a huge kind of step up to be taken over Mayo. I thought they would have maybe leaned towards someone like an Austin O'Malley maybe coming in. I do think Stephen Rochford should have been considered for coming back in. I know he was part of Kevin McStay's backroom team and everything else, but I do think someone like him who knows these players would have been a good shout. But what would be your take on that, Andy Moran? Looking like according to the Connacht Telegraph anyway, it's between Andy Moran and Tony McEntee, with Andy Moran right now the favourite.
Didn't the Connacht Telegraph report that Ciaran Donaghy's Ross Conlon?
Yeah, I was going to mention that, but I didn't want to hang them out to dry. But I suppose we have now.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I remember that, and jeez, I was angry with the Connacht Telegraph that time. Like, and I'm not going to trust him again. But anyway, Andy Moran, I think it is a good appointment in terms of knowing Mayo inside and out. I think it is a good appointment in knowing the players as well. I think he is an upcoming manager. My question is, does Austin O'Malley want the job? Because I thought he'd be a slam dunk considering he won the All-Ireland Club Championship with Coola. He's a former Mayo player himself. He's a Mayo man, proud Mayo man. Like, ticks all the boxes, an excellent coach. You look at what Neil O'Callaghan has done with the Dublin Hurlers as well. That's potentially what Mayo need right now. So I'm wondering, does Austin O'Malley not want the job? Or are Mayo just not offering it to him? I think Andy Moran's a decent candidate, definitely. But I'd be wondering about Austin O'Malley. What's the story there? Why are Mayo... If Mayo didn't offer him the job, I find that very, very puzzling.
But, a little bit surprised as well. Maybe the only thing I can think of, I think he is living in Dublin, as far as I know. So maybe it's a case of not wanting to relocate. And look, obviously, managing the cooler footballers, it is quite an esteemed gig, even for a club team. Do you know what I mean? It's a big club, big resources there, some great players. work with. So look, maybe he just wants to keep going with what he has for now. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe some Mayo fans can let us know whether he was in the running. Is he not in the running? Is he not interested? They'd obviously be a lot more kind of in tune with it as well. Keane was saying as well, great appointment by Derry. Ciaran Meenagh will definitely get Derry motoring once again. Yeah, absolutely. I suppose the other one that's been confirmed is Gavin Devlin as the new Louth senior football manager. Gavin Devlin was the second-hand man to Mickey Hart from, for the whole way, really, from 2003 up until 2020. He was the second-hand man. He was the second-hand man at Derry. Was head of the coaching and development at Louth as well, head of the academy the last couple of years. So he's very, very experienced in terms of intercounty football, obviously part of some esteemed management teams. But he gets the main gig, which I think it's going to be very interesting to see. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see if Louth and Offaly play each other at some point next year as well, given, how close Gavin Devlin and Mickey Hart are and everything else. But, I think I have to say it's a great appointment by Louth. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic appointment, and I think it was the obvious appointment from the very off as well, because what you want is continuity with Louth GA. Well, I think it's an absolutely brilliant appointment in terms of trying to get Louth up to a decent enough level to keep a bit of stability there. They're not going to win Leinster, I don't think, next season. They're not going to repeat. Of course, they'd want to do the back-to-back, but I don't think they're going to do, to be honest with you, promotion, possibly. An objective in Division 2. Like, you never know, but I think in terms of appointment, I think it's the obvious one, and I think it's the absolute correct one. It's a fantastic appointment from Louth GA. He knows what it takes to be Louth manager, obviously being on the right-hand side of Mickey Hart. During the Louth days, he's head of the development as well, which would mean he would know the younger players as well. And he know the older players, so that's a kind of good balance to have too. So it ticks all the right boxes. I think it's a fantastic appointment from a Louth GA point of view. And look, I think it's fantastic from a Louth point of view that they replaced Ger Brennan so quickly as well, and so efficiently. So fair play to them for that. In fairness to them, just on Ger Brennan as well, and we thought he'd be the manager for Dublin, but according to you boys in blue on X, I don't know, did you see this tweet earlier today, Aaron? White smoke. Rumours are circulating that Declan Darcy is set to be appointed as the head coach of the Dublin senior football team, supported by an exceptionally qualified and experienced backroom coaching team. Thoughts?
Yeah, I did hear something during the week about Declan Darcy as well, to be honest with you. But you don't want to. I've heard things in the past before, and you can never really kind of rely on WhatsApps and things like that kind of doing the rounds. I remember the one about Desi Farrell a good couple of years ago, and that was Declan Darcy supposed to be coming in as well. So look, I think if it does happen, it would be a phenomenal appointment. I know he has been part of Leinster, and he's obviously done a Trojan of work there. So I would have thought he would have stayed in that gig, because it's a professional gig to be involved in and everything else. But maybe he's gone and looked at it, and if Dublin have sold the project to him, and he can get some players on board who've maybe left the team in recent years, like Brian Fenton, I know Paul Mannion's come and gone a couple of times, but I still think you could potentially get him back again. In my opinion, I think Jack McCaffrey with injuries, maybe not so much now, but I think there is players there you can get back on side to make us competitive and make us contenders again next year. So no, I would be all for either him or Ger Brennan. I think it has to be one of the other. I think anyone else, then I think we're into questionable territory.
Yeah, exactly. I would have thought Ger Brennan would have been the automatic choice there.
Yeah,
potentially with Declan as a coach. What a dream team that would have been. But according to that tweet, now obviously social media rumours, you probably wouldn't be best to believe them in many ways. So I don't know how reliable that site is, Aaron. So you never know with this. But look, I think it would be a decent appointment, Declan Darcy, but I'm just surprised that Ger Brennan isn't the front runner according to that tweet.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we'll We'll see what happens. Gavin was saying here in relation to Gavin Devlin, I hope he stays at Louth. Unlike the previous two, will be interesting with. I thought they were really bad in the league and groups, but of course they won Leinster. Like achieving what they did in Leinster, it was always going to be of a drop in terms of how well they've played, or how well they can play. I think after achieving what they have achieved, but look, there is young players, there's underage there, so I think it is the right man. And I do agree with you as well. I think he will stick around. Look, I know he's not a Louth man, but I do think he's very much been involved with Louth very heavily over the last couple of seasons. Gavin says, depending on it first common and Mayo gets sorted out, Division 1 could be tricky for Dublin, depending on who's playing. Yeah, absolutely. I thought it'd be tricky for us this year, though, when we managed to kind of pull through it. And we look at how poor we were in the championship. Like, it kind of is mad that we did manage to stick around and survive in Division 1. And we even beat Kerry back in their own backyard. You know what I mean? But yeah, look, we'll move on and discuss very briefly some chat around some new rules in Gaelic football coming into 2026. Jim Gavin was chatting a couple of weeks ago, and there was some games in Dublin taking place between Round Towers of Clondalkin and Fingalians of Swords. Troiling 4 points for a goal, and also as well, if you cross the halfway line, you can't go back as well. So look, we saw some new rules come in last year, or this year I should say, and there was skeptics, including myself, but I have to say, hold my hands up and say, I think the new rules have been a breath of fresh air. That's why I'm not necessarily going to say that bringing in these new rules would be silly, because look, I'm definitely open to trying them again. But what would be your take on these?
From a personal point of view, I hate 4 points for a goal would come in. The main reason being, the app that I use to record my stats actually updated for the 2-pointer just now. So it updated for the club championship. Don't know why it didn't update for the inter-county, but look, it does take time. After all that, I'm hoping 4 points for a goal doesn't come in, because then I'd have to use the Canva machine again. But look, if it improves the game, fair enough. But I'm thinking to myself, Aaron, didn't the new rules revolutionise Gaelic football enough this year? Yeah. It's got people talking. There's been full houses at games. Do you know the saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Yeah. I think that definitely applies for this as well. Look, it could be a good thing, it might not be, but I just think it was so good, the new rules. Why do you need to tweak it even more? I mean, like, they revolutionised the game, the 3-up, 3-back, or 4v3. Like, they've revolutionised the game, and they changed a bit season, which I think was decent from the FRC in all fairness as well. Like the kick-out rule, which was kind of scandalous, including in the Cork and Kerry group game, that's been binned now. So they did change it as the year went on. The 4 points for a goal, will that add more of an onus for goals? I'm not sure, because I seen a stat toward the week. I think it was either the championship or championship and league combined. There was something like 133 goals scored and 129 scored last year. So the goals are still around kind of the same margin, which is decent enough. And you looked at the Down and Galway game in the All-Ireland series, that had a load of goals in it. Cork and Kerry had 4 goals in it. Obviously, Donegal and Armagh, one of the best games of the season. The 2 goals that Donegal scored, won it in the end for them. So I think goals are still a valuable part in the game, even with 3 points. So I don't think you need to change that. In terms of going back, I actually wanted this rule to be brought in for a long time. You know me, Aaron. I hated when players, and especially with my own county Cork, like, were synonymous for this, getting the ball, roll the middle of the pitch, hand pass the ball backwards. Like, to be fair, Cork actually moved with the times and the new rules, and we're a lot more positive this year. But for years, I didn't like that side of the game. And obviously, it was shown in the Leinster final, like, brilliant win for Louth, not take it away from them. But they did do that tactic in the Leinster final, where they played the ball back and back and back, and it annoyed me. It annoyed fans as well. Yes, Louth won it in the end. It was a magnificent achievement, and it sat with the right speech and all that. But in terms of the ethos of the game, it wasn't the best way to end the spectacle like that, was it? So in terms of the passing the ball back rule, I think could be a good thing for Gaelic football. In terms of the 4 points for a goal, I wouldn't be a fan of even more change because we already have the 2-pointer arm. I think that's enough of a change to the scoreboard in many ways. I think 4 points for a goal, if you add this, in a way, it could get away from some teams. Like, imagine if Team A plays Team B, and Team A gets 2 goals within the first 4 minutes. It's 2 goals to no score. Already, the Team B are 8 points down. 8 points down.
Yeah.
Is that going to be a spectacle for later on in the game? I don't think so. So I wouldn't be particularly for the 4 points for a goal. But look, trial games, fair enough, trial it out. But I personally wouldn't be up for bringing it in, considering what we have seen under the new rule, the initial new rules this year.
Yeah, no, I agree with you as well. Like, I think the new rules have been brilliant this year in Gaelic football. We've seen some highly entertaining games, some brilliant games of Gaelic football. I don't really see a need to I understand maybe you want to make little tweaks to make it better, but I think the game is in a good space right now. I know some people will say the All-Ireland final wasn't as... Look, it was an entertaining game scoring-wise. It just happened to be that one team was superior than another on the day, which sometimes can happen. You can't always get super competitive games where both teams are going back and forth. It's unrealistic to think that, and even bringing in the new rules, I don't think would change that, in my opinion. You're always going to get that every now and again. Same obviously applied in the semi-finals. Again, I think it was down to draws and everything else and how draws went in quarterfinals in terms of different games. But I agree with you as well. Like, I think a 4-point goal, look, I was worried about that initially, and I was worried about the 2-pointer initially because I felt that it could benefit the bigger teams, could put away the smaller teams a lot easier. Now, as it worked out, the smaller teams, without sounding disrespectful, were able to actually do a lot better, and they were actually the ones who were competing more with the bigger sides. Like we saw Wicklow against Dublin. Wicklow used the 2-pointer brilliantly. We saw Antrim do something similar against Armagh as well. So maybe goals could help that as well. In terms of not bringing the ball back, I'd just be worried that I don't think we should make every team play the same way. And I've said that before. I think there should be different styles. I think we've gotten rid of, ultra defensive football, blanket defensive football. I think that's pretty much dead now. It's evolved maybe a little bit with the new rules, but it's more or less gone. So I'd be worried if we made everyone play the same way that it could get too basketball-esque. That would just be my opinion. But look, I think it's something they could revisit in a couple of years, but I don't think we should be looking at changing things every year,
Maybe so, yeah. But I'll throw up a question back to you, Aaron. Were you kind of obviously weren't, because you're rivals with Meath, obviously. But in terms of getting a neutral hat on, were you annoyed what Lowe did in the last few minutes against Meath?
To be honest, not really, no. And look, again, I've seen Dublin do it against Mayo 2017. We kept the ball for the last couple of minutes. I think it is, yeah, it is frustrating, I think, for neutrals, for rival teams. So I understand that if they were to make some tweaks or changes around that, then fair enough. But at the same time, it's still a skill. Do you know what I mean? To keep the ball like that for a couple of minutes, to keep possession, the thing is as well, not many teams are able to actually do it. A lot of teams lose the ball in those areas. Like, you are running a risk. You're taking a chance, and if you lose the ball, if Louth had lost the ball in a couple of those areas, it could have been a completely different game. Do you know what I mean? So it's an interesting one. It wouldn't be surprised if it didn't stop it though, because players could go over the halfway line. They could still potentially keep the ball, So it's a hard one to judge, really.
It is, definitely. It depends on your perspective at the same time as well. So it's kind of a difficult one to judge there. But yeah, look, if the FRC want to do a few changes, if they want to trial it and see how it goes, fair enough. But yeah, I don't think it's a must. I won't say it's a must. I don't think it's a must right now, because I think Gaelic football is in as a better place than probably around 2010 or whatever year was competitive. Look, people point towards the All-Ireland final, but there's plenty of examples of finals in any sport which have gone completely one-sided. Look this year in soccer. Look at the Champions League final, PSG and Inter Milan, 5-0. Nobody would have expected that, but that was one-sided, and people would say it was that boring. Would you change the game of soccer? No. So like, you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days in terms of this. The problem was, under the old rules in Gaelic football, there was too many games where you were just like, I want to turn this off. Like the All-Ireland final last year, at least the All-Ireland final this year, there was a lot of great scores. There was memorable moments. Obviously, the David Clifford 2-pointer on the buzzer. The Joe O'Connor goal was absolutely superb as well. The bits of defending from Mike Breen and Jason Foley, like, it was just a brilliant kind of watch. But when you look at Armagh and Galway in the All-Ireland final previous year, and I, to be honest with you, Aaron, in 2024, I wasn't neutral. I didn't mind who won, Galway and Armagh. But watching it, it was just so boring. It was so boring. Like every kind of play, there was hand passing around, hand pass back to the goalkeeper, hand pass forward a small bit, and it was just, it didn't take off at all again, which was incredibly boring. And there was too many of those games last year. Like, even when I was doing my awards last year in terms of game of the year, genuinely for Gaelic football, I struggled. But this year, even you don't have the club championship right now, but you could already think of 16 contenders right now. Off the top of my head, Cork Kerry in the Munster Championship, Donegal Armagh. Obviously, in terms of shock and everything, in terms of the excitement, Meath and Galway. I think in terms of Kerry's performance, Kerry and Armagh, down in Galway, certainly up there. Cork and Dublin to a certain extent. Like, there were so many games that you could say, okay, that could be up there for game of the year. But last year, there wasn't enough. That's why the rules had to be changed. So, again, going back to the previous point, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, absolutely. Gavin was saying I thought it was a little chaotic in the Railway Cup with 4 points for goals, but it would encourage more players going for goals. It depends if you like 2-pointers or goals more. Essentially, the ball back rule might make the job nearly impossible for defenders, and Dublin is great, says I think keeping that ball at the very end is just part of the game. Moving on to the All-Ireland Camogie final then, that's taking place on Sunday between Cork and Galway. Cork bidding for 3 in a row, which could be massive from a Cork perspective. And look, obviously, having achieved what they achieved last year against Galway in the final, beating Waterford the season previous, of course, as well. But look, interesting enough, they are playing Galway in the final. They beat Galway in the final last year, but it was very narrow in the end. Like, it was only a 3-point win in the All-Ireland final last year, and it was certainly a game that a lot of people expected to be very one-sided from a Cork perspective, and it didn't quite turn out that way. So what's the feeling like going into the final this year?
Obviously, a lot of confidence. As I mentioned previously in the podcast, Cork have an average winning margin in the championship of 20 points, which is astronomical in its own right. The closest team that has got to Cork in this championship has been Clare, who lost by 9 points down in Super Valley Park Eve. So that just epitomises Cork's kind of dominance this year. Would I say it's the exact same as the hurling in terms of the height? Probably not, because when you look at the hurling, there were so many unconvincing displays, like the game against Waterford, like the game against Tip, even when we were up a man, like we weren't doing things properly and things like that. The game against Limerick where we got hammered and stuff like that. This Camogie team across the league and the championship have been utterly dominant when they played their first game. They have not put a foot wrong, really. And I was chatting to Ciaran McCarthy on the Southern Star podcast in the last few weeks. I did ask her about the hurlers lost to Tipperary. And what she said was very, very interesting. She was saying that it's got us more tuned in. It shows you anything can happen in sport if you're not tuned in, if you don't aren't ready from the whistle. And I think this Cork Camogie team is drilled. And they all enjoy playing with each other as well. The enjoyment is through the roof. You look at the players performing well at this stage, the experienced campaigners, Amy O'Connor, Aisling Thompson, Katrina Mackey, Pamela Mackey, Amy Lee, like they are performing very well. Laura Tracy, of course, they are performing very, very well this season. But you add that with the youth exuberance, Orla Callahan having a decent season, Clodagh Finn, one of the top scorers from playing the championship, really good introductory season in many ways for Clodagh. She did come on and get a point, one of the insurance points against Galway in the All-Ireland final last year, but she wasn't a starter up until this year. Then she hits form in the Ashford Cup with UCC, and she gets the start under Durham Manley because of Katrina Mackey's injury. And what a decision that's turned out to be. She's been absolutely brilliant throughout the championship. She got a bit of an injury in the semi-final. Hopefully we'll recover for the final. You look at Laura Hayes, the performances she's had over the last few seasons. You look at Maeve Callahan, the captain, absolutely brilliant. And the whole Cork panel have really contributed in many ways as well. So it's been a brilliant year for Cork so far. They just have to finish it off. But the thing is, it's kind of weird, Aaron. Cork have won a lot of All-Irelands, but they haven't won it 3 in a row in Camogie since 1973. So there's history on the line for this group. It's going to be very, very interesting to see. Look, Galway, the thing is, Galway actually lost to Cork in the league final by 11 points, 21 points to 10. And I was looking while doing a piece for the Southern Star, to obviously pick it up this Thursday for a preview. And I was looking at the two teams on that day in April. And Galway, from the semi-final win over Tipperary to the league final, there was a one-player difference. But it's absolutely massive when you think about it, because that player was Roisin Black. She wasn't there against Cork. She's now full-back. And I think that is a massive coup for Galway to get her back in, because when you compare the semi-final and the league final, against Cork, Galway conceded 18 points from play. Cork had a 72% shot accuracy. Against Tip in the All-Ireland semi-final, Galway only conceded 1-3 from play. And when you look at it in deep dive as well, the goal they conceded was very, very fortuitous from a Tip point of view. When Ciaran Kennedy hit the ball, and it just ended up in the back of the net from a long way out. So I think Galway have massively improved defensive-wise. Their players have improved. Ailish O'Reilly was absolutely outstanding in the semi-final. Aoife Donoghue, as experienced as they come. Carrie Dolan, brilliant free taker, 42 points this season. Niamh Mallon, 117 from play, the goal coming in the All-Ireland semi against Tipperary. Galway are a team for the big occasion. But the thing is with Galway, they've lost a lot of experienced campaigners down through the years. It is well documented. Sarah Durfin actually retired. Niamh Kilkenny didn't commit this season. The two McGraths, Orla and Siobhan, aren't in the panel this year. So a lot of the onus will be down to Ailish O'Reilly, the Emma Heliberts, the Aoife Donoghues, the Carrie Dolans. A lot of onus will be down to those players, to Dervla Higgins, Shauna Healy, all them players. Will that be too much for them when you look at Cork? Then there's a lot of youth and experience, but the older players have really stayed with this Cork team for the last few years. Like, there's no sign of Amy O'Connor dropping out. There's no sign of Aisling Thompson dropping out. Like, Aisling Thompson's mid-30s, and there's no sign of her dropping out. Pamela Mackey, Katrina Mackey, Hannah Looney, no sign of them dropping out whatsoever. And that is a positive sign from a Cork point of view as well. And they seem so assured in what they're doing at the same time as well. Yes, they might have played poor enough opposition up to this point. Obviously, you have to play what's in front of you. But when you look at, even when they were in a tricky situation, Cork in the semi-final against Waterford, they were a point down. Waterford were flying, 80% shot accuracy in the first half. They were absolutely brilliant. In fairness to Waterford, Niamh Rockett and Beth Carton and these players really put it up to Cork. But Cork didn't say, this is an off day. They went out in the second half and they performed absolutely brilliantly, and they got over the line. Not just got over the line, they won by 10 points in the end. 11-point turnaround. So this Cork team is capable of turning around what seems to be a kind of tricky situation and turn it into a comprehensive win. I'm not saying it will be a comprehensive win in the final, because the finals have a different meaning altogether, but it will be It's going to be a very, very interesting game to call. Like, Galway will turn up. It's just a question, can Cork keep that consistent level for this final as well? I'm sure they will, because they are a grounded group from what I've seen anyway. They are a very, very good team as well. They won the league title. They didn't, well, you could argue they probably won the Munster because they eventually beat Waterford. But obviously that Munster campaign was cancelled because of the Scorched Shorts debacle. Said about that, the better. But the point is, Cork have won nearly everything. They won last year's All-Ireland, they won the league title, and they're going for a third title in a row. I think they're in a very good position to do that. And I'm sure they will be wary of Galway's test, because this is a Galway team that have put it up to Cork for so many seasons now. And when you look at the last 10 championship meetings between the sides, I did a bit of research earlier on for the Star as well today. Out of the last 10 meetings, 5 wins each. So when you consider that, it's a tight game. But Cork have performed to such a level this year that I just can't see them losing this Sunday.
Yeah, I think so as well. Like, I mean, it's been, as you said, like, they've been so dominant this year, like so dominant, and it seems like it'd be very hard to stop them. Like, I do remember watching the final though last year though, and there was that same kind of consensus that Cork were just going to roll Galway over, and that didn't happen in the end. Like, looking at this Cork side, like, is there a weakness there? Like, is there a way that Galway could be Cork? Could it be complacency creep in? Although I think we'd be fair to say we haven't seen that from this Cork team so far this year. There's no evidence to suggest that will happen, but is there any kind of weakness that Galway fans could maybe cling towards going into the final?
The thing is, Aaron, and like, you could say it about the hurlers, and that's why Tip won the final in the end. I genuinely can't see it with this Camogie team at this present moment in time. They have the scores. If Amy O'Connor's having a bad day for the Vries, put Ciaran McCarthy on them. If she's having a bad day, put Katrina Maggie on them. So they have other players that can step up. And as well as that, across the whole calendar year, Cork have conceded 3 goals across league and championship. That is a brilliant statistic. There was a spell, I think Ciaran McCarthy did mention on the Star podcast as well, that there was a spell that Amy Lee didn't concede an inter-county goal for near almost a year, which is, it's exceptional in its own right. And that's a credit to the defence as well. The likes of Laura Tracy back there, the likes of Maeve Callan. Obviously, there are a few absentees. Izzy O'Regan, unfortunately, is injured for this season. Best wishes to her in her recovery. But you look at the Cork team right now, and you talk about weaknesses like the goalkeeper Amy Lee, solid as ever. The full backline, Pamela Mackey, Libby Coppinger, Maeve Callan, experience as they come. Aoife Healy, Laura Tracy, Laura Hayes. I've been together for so many seasons in that line. Hannah Looney, Aisling Thompson, as experienced as they come. Orla Callan, Emma Murray, Ciaran McCarthy. Okay, Ciaran McCarthy has played well, but maybe that could be one. Orla Callan and Emma Murray. Orla Callan has played a few seasons in the Cork team, but there might be a bit of inexperience there. So maybe the Galway half-back line could get at the likes of Emma Murray and Orla Callan. And then you look at the full forwards, Katrina Mackey, Saoirse McCartan, and Amy O'Connor. You could easily bring in the youth and exuberance of Clodagh Finn there as well. So, like, it's going to be very, very hard for Cork to be solid. And even then, Waterford kind of tried to quell Cork, and they did so well in doing that and playing a sweeper and things like that. But even then, they got tired as the game went on, and Cork could bring on the subs. Orla Mullins didn't see much starting time. She's only a young player herself, and she got 1-2 from play off the bench against Waterford. That's not a good sign for Galway if you're bringing on those sorts of players as well. But what I will say about Galway, they had around over 60% shot accuracy against Tipperary, massively improved, 65% overall. They only missed 10 shots. They got 113 from play, 63% shot accuracy for play as well. They were better at the turnover count. Their puck outs were pretty good as well from Sarah Healy. So there are ways for Galway to get at them. And they do have the players, absolutely. And Galway have the temperament to go over Cork. Like, it was the way in 2023 Cork faced Waterford, but it was almost like Cork were always going to win that final because Waterford were kind of newbies. They weren't experienced at this level, whereas Galway are. and there's always capability for Galway to turn it on and flick on a switch and perform at Croke Park. Galway did beat Cork in the 2021 All-Ireland final as well. Let's not forget that. So there is a way for Galway to go on and win this game. I just can't see any weakness in this Cork team. I really can't, Aaron. I think Galway, the thing is, they played nearer to 100% last year and they still fell short.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very, very difficult to see how Galway do get over the line, even without Niamh Kilkenny this season as well, and without Two McGrath.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. It all is pointing towards a Cork victory, and it would be an absolute massive upset if Galway were to go and pull it off. In terms of a score prediction, look, I'm going to go 3-13 to 12 points for Cork. I'm going to go in the team of one-sided finals, which a lot of them have ended up in terms of the All-Ireland finals across the 3 previous codes. I think Cork are going to win it by 10 in the end. Look, I do think Galway will, like what you said, I think they'll stifle Cork, and maybe in the early exchanges they'll be able to restrict them and everything else. But I do think Cork will pick them off, and as you said, with the players that they can bring off the bench, I think they'll be too strong. What would be your prediction?
I'm probably going to go tighter, to be honest with you. I'm going to say Cork 2-15, Galway 1-14.
There we go.
4-point margin. I think Cork will get over the line with Galway. They always turn up in finals. I think they'll stifle Cork in the first half, maybe get a goal through an Aidan O'Reilly or somebody like a Niamh Meenagh. But Cork will turn around the second half with their subs bench, with their experience, with their know-how. I think they'll get over the line.
Yeah, well, if my predictions are anything to go by this year, Galway will probably win now. So, looking at previous predictions, when I've backed big teams to win big, usually the opposite has happened. So we'll see what happens there, but we will certainly stick with a Cork win. So yeah, look, we'll wrap it up there. Cheers anyone who did tune in. Do let us know in the comments your thoughts on some of the different topics we did discuss. Be back later in the week to do some grades of all Ireland football counties. We did one last week of the hurling county, so we'll be back later in the week to I'll be back later in the week to do the football one. So do stay tuned for that. And until the next podcast, make sure to check it out. Make sure to check out Matthew's podcast as well, Gaelic Statsman, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. You'll be able to get it everywhere. And until the next one, we'll speak to you all later.